Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I think the problem with any Jurassic World movie that's not one that takes place in a theme park that actually goes awry is that you kind of are in the shadow of any Jurassic Park movie that is that. You're always in the shadow of the original Jurassic Park movie, which doesn't really need to be said is the best of the Jurassic Park movies. I know everyone always says it fails to capture the magic of the original. That's sort of like a far-gone conclusion at this point, not worth even saying, even though I just said it. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom has to kind of exist in this world where it's under the shadow of a previous film. In this, I guess, both Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, and kind of living under the shadow of the events of that film, much like most sequels are. Probably most lesser sequels are, to be frank, because if you're a good sequel, you find a way to kind of exist under your own thing, which this film probably does a better job at on a conceptual story level than we've had probably from any of the Jurassic Park sequels that do something like this. It's probably better than Jurassic Park: The Lost World, in that it actually starts on the island and actually does something away from the island, which is maybe the first Jurassic Park movie to spend a major part of the film off the island. I know The Lost World does, I mean, at least with the dinosaurs. Obviously they're not on the island in other parts of the other movies, but with the dinosaurs leaving for a major portion of the film, and this kind of like haunted house setup is remarkably different and kind of shows different kind of, Jurassic World, Jurassic Park, whatever kind of movie, which I think this franchise really needed to do. It needed to change. It needed to do something different, because seeing them like run around, the abandoned island, this time with weeds growing over it and stuff, has already been done like 2 other times. This is like the 3rd attempt at trying to do something like that, and at least on a story level I respect it, despite it being written by Colin Trevorrow. It at least came to a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World kind of movie on better terms and tried to do something with it. But execution is different from, the actual, I guess, text in this point, in that I don't really think this movie feels that exciting or different. You have a different director, J.A. Boyana, who also did A Monster Calls and The Orphanage, and I really liked A Monster Calls a lot, and he is kind of this unique auteur, but much like I felt the same way with, I believe, David Weiss on Deadpool 2, it doesn't feel like it's one of their movies. It does in certain places, you can tell like they had something to do with it, but it doesn't feel like part of their filmography. It feels like more a part of the franchise they're working in, which feels like, well, why did you even get them? Why didn't you just have them direct a few sequences and just get like somebody else, frankly? I felt that is kind of boring. Like, I'm not pro-auteurism all the time or something, but at the same time, I don't get like why you would even have him if you're not going to use him for the talents that make him unique, really. And it could bring something new to a Jurassic Park film, having like a unique take on it. Now, frankly, all the stuff in the mansion, particularly the cinematography in this film, is really, really unique and beautiful and awesome. And even the stuff on the island, there's certain sequences, I thought, particularly a sequence where I think it's a brontosaurus is like howling as you see the volcano ash like cover the island and destroy it, and you see him kind of die as the island is dying, was a really kind of hauntingly beautiful sequence. Reminded me of Walking with Dinosaurs, where they'd have this kind of haunting, like, these dinosaurs are dying, everything they do will be forgotten, and things like that. Kind of this existential dread to dinosaurs kind of story. There is kind of like that achingly sad, extinction kind of parable that I think works really well with dinosaurs, and that really played up in that. But it's also just an incredibly striking image. Everyone on the boat is watching this and sort of blown away by like seeing this creature sadly die, who they didn't see as they were getting onto the boat, and I guess didn't want to save and then sell to rich guys or something. It's a very emotional shot. There's certain sequences like that I really like this movie, but in other sequences and its execution, it didn't feel like it understood what you really like about a Jurassic Park film, which is not necessarily, just dinosaurs. They got you into the theater for the dinosaurs, clearly, but the excitement, the thrill of it, the bombast kind of blockbuster thrill ride is what made you fall in love with it. And it's because Spielberg could stay with certain moments. He could have that exciting moment, exciting action set piece after exciting action set piece. And that film wasn't so much into logic as it was into following exciting moment to exciting moment, filling in the gaps, and kind of like not even considering like filling in the gaps or thinking about logic. There's huge leaps he takes in that work more on the excitement of the film and the propulsiveness of the original Jurassic Park. But then if you look at the original Jurassic Park, you don't really question it. The excitement is moving so well, and he could do those sort of things because he was Steven Spielberg. He was at like the height of his powers. He made Jurassic Park and Schindler's List in the same year. It was fucking crazy. But the problem with all these other films, and particularly the Jurassic World films, is they sort of try to explain all this crap, and that's something that like Spielberg like never tried to do because he was fucking Steven Spielberg, and he could direct, you know, an amazing sequence like with his eyes closed probably way better than these guys could, frankly. I think that's kind of the problem in the attempts of these, because like sure, you were opening up this world a lot more, sure, you're doing more with the Jurassic Park stuff, but I think Spielberg did a lot more with a lot less because he understood how to play with those characters, how to play with an audience, and this cares a little more about like the story of all this and plays almost like most sequels do. It falls under the shadow of it. It tries to do a much more complicated, darker plot because I guess that's what you do in a sequel or whatever, but it doesn't think about why it's doing it, like the Jeff Goldblum quote that we use for everything. You knew you could do it, you didn't think if you should do it. And I think, or I'm sure someone in the comments will clarify that quote, but whatever. And I think oftentimes with the Jurassic Park films, they don't think about those things. The only two that really worked on theoretical levels was the third one, which went like a little too B-movie. You know, there's always this hint that these are silly monster movies, which are obviously influencing them, and Jurassic Park 3 went like too far, which is why a lot of people don't like it. There's like kind of a hidden code that you can't like reveal, that all the blockbusters are sort of, you know, B-movies at their core. And the Jurassic World, which kind of presents you the Jurassic Park sequel you actually wanted, which was them in a theme park again. And this one, I think its theory isn't as sound. It's more of, well, we have to do this in a Jurassic Park sequel, but we can also do something different. And I kind of would have liked more of the different house stuff and less of the island stuff. But also I think the bigger thing is like they have a cool sequence in this, which could have a really great physical comedy piece with Chris Pratt. And it's just frankly not long enough and not thrilling enough. And he gets shot with like some dart that paralyzes him and lava's coming towards him. And if they really wanted to sell that, they would have had that sequence go on as he slowly regains control of his body and he avoids the lava, and it could be thrilling and silly, and it could be this cool sequence playing off of all the excitement of a Jurassic World film. And you could also have an actual exciting sequence in these films without dinosaurs, which by the way Jurassic Park did also, and it would have been fun, and it could have shown, you know, Chris Pratt's range as a comedic actor. But they don't really hold on it very long. It's funny for a little bit, but you could almost forget about it. I brought it up to people who have seen it, and they honestly are like, oh yeah. A lot of these sequences, they kind of go by so quickly. There's a shot of, again, I'm using Chris Pratt again for some reason, but he like punches 5 guys in a single shot. There's a single like tracking shot where he like punches 5 guys in a row, and it doesn't have that uniqueness, that like, oh, that's really cool, that's a really cool sequence. It doesn't like stick with you. I remember at the end of the shot I go, oh yeah, he did that in like one shot, I didn't realize that. And it's like kind of the execution and the writing doesn't take advantage of how awesome a lot of this is. Obviously these guys aren't going to ever be as good as Spielberg, but I think one lesson from Spielberg's direction is he always got the excitement of these things. You know, everyone always says with Jurassic Park, like, there was this magic to it. I mean, I sort of think that's true. I think people go a little too far with their generational nostalgia and all that crap. But the point of why people say that is because Spielberg would stay on those moments and let those moments sink in. And a lot of the problem with this Jurassic World film and the other one is that they sort of don't. I think the other one actually sort of did a little bit, but this one like moves on really quickly. At the same time, the horror elements that J.A. Boyena is really good at, especially in the house, I think is really cool to have a Jurassic Park film kind of by more of a horror director than a typical kind of action director or whatever Colin Trevorrow is. But it never really gets into that enough, frankly. You get a little bit of that, particularly in that house, but not enough. There's certain sequences that reference, you know, Hammer horror and Nosferatu, and it does kind of feel like a spooky haunted house movie in certain places, but it doesn't take enough advantage of that as it really should. You have a different thing with the Jurassic Park movie, finally. Like, do something really cool with it, and like play like you're doing something really cool with it. But then, like, you know, when they have of course have a genetically engineered hybrid dinosaur, because they had that last time, it just feels like, oh, it's more of the same. Hey, you know, we're different, but we're not too different, so don't get too upset. And it just feels boring at this point. Like, why would I want to see that again? Like, you already did that. Like, do something. Like, you have a chance at this. And it felt like I think they, for the most part, did do different things with this film, but they didn't do it all the way, so it doesn't almost feel as convincing. It's like kind of like a weak, limp dick kind of Jurassic Park film that really you feel like could be like this really strong entry in the franchise that I think this franchise really needs to be honest. Like, to have it be a franchise that people care about a little more than there's Jurassic Park, and then there's Jurassic World, which most of us think is sort of dumb. This movie's still dumb. Jurassic Park movies are generally sort of stupid, but there's a funness to them, and I think this film mostly has that. It also has some like pretty cool twists and turns, which I'll talk about in a spoiler section at the end of this. But I would say, you know, if you're going to see a big blockbuster explosion-y movie, it's definitely a fun one and has some cool set pieces and things like that. But it just feels like kind of the general kind of like this director can deliver kind of an adequate blockbuster kind of way that this summer seems to be going in terms of its blockbusters, which I find kind of boring. I don't like seeing bad blockbusters, but I don't like seeing ones that are like so average that they're like sort of just forgettable almost after you see them. I think Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom feels like it should be much more interesting. And it is an interesting movie, but it's interesting in the way that is forgettable. And that's the biggest problem with it. Like, everyone claims it's too stupid. I don't necessarily, you know, they're all stupid, so like, you know, again, it's like sort of an obvious thing. But like, it doesn't matter that it's stupid necessarily. It bothers me that like you have all this potential in this. You really do. You have a lot of potential. You have a different director. You have a cool concept. You have a haunted house dinosaur movie. Like, when has that ever happened? And it just doesn't feel as exciting as that concept honestly should. It doesn't feel as unique as me saying haunted house dinosaur movie. Like, that should be really cool. That should be like the exciting, like, oh my god, look what they did to this. And it just doesn't really take advantage of something that is literally right there to let them do something different with this franchise and excite you. It just kind of like presents it as a normal sort of blockbuster somehow, despite the interesting cinematography by Oscar Fura and having like a great composer and all these things. It just ends up sort of feeling sort of normal despite having, you know, unique pieces within it. It's sort of maybe more disappointing how it feels while you're watching it. It's just like how they somehow manage to like hamper down all the uniqueness to give you sort of just another lame, just decently entertaining kind of Jurassic Park movie is sort of maybe not what we wanted or not what the franchise honestly needed at this point. Now, there are actually twists and turns which really deal with the very end, so if you don't want this spoiled for you, stop watching and go see it and stuff. So there's two twists in this. One is that you find out the daughter of the guy who like helped co-own the Jurassic Park stuff is not his daughter. Well, they first say it's his granddaughter, and then you find out it's his daughter and she's a clone, and you're like, oh, that's crazy, I guess. But there's problems with that reveal. One, we haven't met this girl before, so the fact that she's a clone is like, oh, that's okay. And it doesn't even feel like that big of a twist, because it's just like, she's a clone. Does she have like cool clone powers or something? And it's like, no, she's just a clone. You're like, I mean, that's still like, scientifically that is pretty amazing and interesting, but this is also like, you made like this crazy Indoraptor thing, so I figured you'd do something, you know, give this kid like cool wings or something like that, but they didn't. And I also think on a narrative level, if they had brought back a character who had like died in one of these films and been like, look, we have a clone of them, what, mind twist or something, or like we found the DNA from Jeff Goldblum, or like did something crazy, but it's like, I don't know, or his daughter died and they like cloned her. What? That's all. Like, and that's also why him and Hammond had this disagreement, which also doesn't make sense because this girl's like 8 or 10 or something, and like Jurassic Park 3 was like 2001, and if they had this like falling out, which I believe really happened in maybe the second one or something, this kid would at least be a teenager. So like, I don't really, that part made no sense to me, but again, it's a Jurassic Park movie, so I'll let that go. The other thing is the very end of the film, when the dinosaurs just get out and they just kind of go, okay, just go, and now dinosaurs will live amongst humanity, and they don't really stop it. And I get this movie is like seriously way too long, and I wanted to go anyway, but it sort of didn't make sense because it sets up this thing as like, hey, there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex with a lion and a velociraptor looking at a suburban neighborhood, and like these dinosaurs out in the wild, but like it's supposed to insinuate that in the third one. The whole plan of this trilogy is, you know, the idea of like that this technology is out there, the dinosaurs exist, and humanity and dinosaurs have to work together and everything. It felt like the way they did it was sort of like, oh, we're not going to catch them. Dinosaurs just exist with humans now. If I was in a house and a bunch of dinosaurs got loose, I'd at least like, I know snitches get stitches, but I would call the cops in that example, you know, somebody, because that's like majorly bad that dinosaurs are just out like that. And I kind of almost want the third movie to be them trying to get the dinosaurs in the real world, not like that the dinosaurs exist with humanity and stuff, because that's one of those ideas that sounds cool, like the sequel of Independence Day, where we have alien technology and things are very different and we live in this alternate timeline. But Independence Day 2 like was really bad, and I don't have enough faith in Colin Trevorrow to write like a good script out of that concept. But a simple like, you know, 1-2 night, you know, long crazy night kind of movie of them catching dinosaurs in suburbia and stuff, that would be awesome. And you have Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, they can go along, and you don't really do anything with their characters in this movie anyway, so you just have like a really simple economic, like catching all the dinosaurs, and they'll still have the radio things and you can connect to them, and it could be really neat. They could have a hunter character. I mean, it's just like, it writes itself, it would be fun. But instead of it's just like dinosaurs and people coexist, like where's the conflict in that? I don't know. One of them runs for president or something, like I just don't, that sounds stupid to me. It felt like sort of a weak execution of them going like, oh no, dinosaurs, don't go, no, where are you going, no, come back, oh well, I guess they're with people now, let's all go home. And then they take the girl too, which Geraldine Chaplin's in this, which I thought that was actually cool. I like that she was in this, but it seemed like, I think she was the girl's mom, or original girl's mom or whatever. Like, why wasn't she, like, were they delivering her to Geraldine Chaplin or something? Like, I like that she was in this. They got to the end of the movie and was like, I think we all want to go home now, so let's just like say this is over. And that's kind of like all the shots of the dinosaurs were like these cool shots of them like in front of stuff, but it like didn't feel like it led anywhere, unless they're doing like literally a sequel that takes place like 5 minutes after this, which I think would have been a cooler idea and a good way to, more smarter way to end it. I like what it sets up with the franchise. I'm actually 50% hopeful and 50% like, oh yeah, I forgot who's running this, they'll probably screw it up. But I like at least have some faith because they have something pretty cool to work with, and an actual unique Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, whatever movie, I think could be really exciting. And that is exciting either if they screwed up with a dumb concept with no conflict, or they catch all the dinosaurs in the real world and stuff. I think that could be a lot of fun. But we'll see what exactly happens with that. But I think this gives me hope with the Jurassic World franchise, that they could do something fun with it for once and not kind of live under the shadow of this thing like this movie has in The Lost World of Jurassic Park 3, and really Jurassic World, the first one of this one, which is the fourth one, this is the fifth one, kind of almost freeing the franchise and kind of going into more interesting, weird directions, and even having, you know, dinosaurs and machine guns, which is really what we've all wanted all this time. And I think that to me sounds really exciting, and I hope they don't screw it up, which they most likely will. So if you have seen Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. Oh, I had to shoot in here because my wife was working in the other room and I wanted to shoot this and put it out and stuff, so that's why. Hey, different room, that's cool, right? Different